used to sing, I haven't been this high in years. Actually, I have family that live in Wyoming. And 5 years ago, I did pass through Denver. We had a family reunion for my sister's 50th anniversary. And a baby in a family. And the oldest, my brother, was half a year older than Jack. When was this about? When did the Fox came out? What, 81 or 82? 80?
It was right about then, yeah.
Jack was staying downstairs in the building I still live in. And he gives me a call on a Sunday night. He says, I got the gallows. I need your help. So I went down, and I read, I think, the galleys aloud of the entire book while Jack read his manuscript. And it was a hell of an experience to actually vocalize the words in that book, one of the greatest books of all time. I love Jack for his just wild imagination. Anything can happen. And it makes me feel like a little at a handicap because I live in a city and I love living in a city. I'm coming up on the 60th anniversary of my faded love of the city of Gwen. I've been around. I was born as far north as you can go in New York State on the St. Lawrence River, about 15 miles from Quebec. But from 1950 to 1953, I lived in Honolulu, which was before jet travel and before statehood. And then got on a small passenger freighter with 7 passengers, 5 of them my family, and sailed for New York. It took a month. Went through the tail end of a hurricane off Cape Hatteras, the famous Cape Hatteras, and it was the greatest experience of my life. I didn't get seasick, and I had to run in the ship, and I was all over it. And just monumental heavings of the ocean. And then to arrive in 1953 on October 29th into New York Harbor, and the hurricane had left about 6 inches of snow. It was just beyond belief. My brother, who had been in uniform when he put us on the ship, was in cities to meet us. And the first stop was Macy's, the only place that had shoes that could fit a foot with the toes this far apart, because I hadn't worn shoes for 3 years. You didn't have to wear shoes. You know why you don't have to wear shoes until the 3rd grade? And now I understand it's the 6th grade. My father had hacked up the shoes that I did have on hand. He had to cut the sides off the front and the heels off, and it was impossible. So I went from a ship directly to Macy's, and that was it. I was in love. On the other hand, most of the last 20 years, I've been spending all my waking hours in Brooklyn. I had 9 years. I got a degree at Columbia in nursing in '94, and I began work as a visiting nurse. I studied it. I was in love with viruses, so I had a job working in pediatric HIV, and I have a caseload. Well, it lasted in those days, that had me all over the north part of Brooklyn. I was the only white nurse and the only male nurse, and I was the only guy who was comfortable going in and out of the project. So and then after 9 years, one of the clinics at a notoriously bad city hospital, where most of my patients had gone, invited me to be their staff nurse, I was walking into a closed union shop as a head nurse, which got me into a lot of doo-doo with fellow employees, but most of the atmosphere of my poems comes from having lived that life, to the extent that I was rarely getting more than 5 hours sleep a night, but I loved it. And I was deeply involved with people who were from what the scholars call the Black Atlantic. I had patients who were from all over the Caribbean, the South, West Africa, had patients from South Africa, from Kenya, and I got very close to them. So that's sort of the coloration here. At one time, when the East Village in New York was a funky place, that was sort of my scene. But let me get on with this.